Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, in the offseason, Behren Morton was asked to do this in 2024, and so far, I think he's checked that box.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks for always making us your first listen. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So visit FanDuel.com to get started with the only Chris level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And we are turning the page, hitting the downhill slope of the week as we get ready for the Red Raiders and Bearcats Saturday night under the lights from Jones Stadium. A blackout is on. Take that however you'd like to interpret it. Wardrobe-wise, BAC-wise, whatever you're cooking up. Ready to see it go down Saturday night from Jones Stadium. And we're going to spend some time on both sides of the ball on today's episode. We'll hear from Texas Tech defensive coordinator Tim DeRuyter coming up in just a moment. I want to get to his thoughts on a couple of standouts as far as some of the younger guys are concerned, and obviously a boatload of young guys been getting snaps, particularly on that side of the football. And also want to get into a thought from him regarding something that I think was echoed as well by Joey McGuire as it relates to putting these guys in a position to do what they do best, and in some way, shape, or form, that meaning simplifying some things, at least compared to where we were back in week one.
I have a question. Yeah, I do. I have a question. Please call on me. I'm curious if you know. I did not, so I will admit. Is a bearcat real or a mythical creature?
I do not know. I have no idea. I've never seen one in the wild.
Care to venture a guess?
I'm going to say it's real.
Probably tipped my hand there. Tipping pitches right there by asking you. It is a real thing. They're almost extinct or endangered. Maybe is the right word. It's in the mongoose family.
Yep, that's what I was going to figure.
Yep.
Mongoose.
Yeah, and they're found in Asia, specifically Southeast Asia. So anyway, I had no idea. I'm like,
and that's near Cincinnati.
Exactly.
We can save geography for another day. I'm not quite sure.
Exactly.
Just talking wildlife today.
Yeah.
Well, let's push them a little further to the brink of extinction on Saturday night. Would love to skin a few and put them on the wall, baby.
I know Tommy Tuberville acted like a bearcat one day on the Texas Tech sideline after he didn't like what was called on special teams. Threw
a little bit of a hissy fit.
It was a bit catty. Yeah, that's right. Or bear catty as it would be.
I'd say let's make a rug out of them, but I think they're kind of tiny. So maybe just one of those rugs you put in front of the toilet or like stepping out of the shower, something like that. A bath mat, I think is what they call it. Okay. I didn't know we were going to get into some wildlife convo, but I'm always here for it as we are still kind of getting accustomed to some of the newer members of the Big 12 Conference. They've got a year under their belt. You did not face them a season ago, but you're getting them in your house this time around. And coming in as another 3-1 football team, 1-0 in Big 12 play, just like you are, and have got some confidence after housing Houston most recently. So looking forward to seeing who will emerge with their second Big 12 win of the season. Obviously, a big part of the recipe for Texas Tech to be successful is what's happening with number 2 in Behren Morton. And Chris, so far, he's had a pretty good season statistically. I think part of maybe the frustration for him and some Tech fans is some of the things that have been left out there that you kind of figure like, man, could have been even better if you're connecting here, you're connecting there, or having this kind of day or that kind of day in some weeks gone by. But certainly has been a part of a winning recipe for Tech as a whole as they've gotten off to a 3-1 start this year. I think he's your conference leader as far as passing yards are concerned, conference leader as far as passing touchdowns are concerned, maybe third in passing yardage, pardon me, passing or conference leader as far as passing attempts are concerned. But I think maybe the number that has my attention the most so far, and I wonder if this is simply what he is doing best to this point in the season, 2 interceptions. And there are some other times where I think maybe a smart thing is being done by Behren Morton. Maybe it's a play he's not trying to force or a hit he's avoiding taking that doesn't get all that much pub as far as our conversations go, but something else he deserves credit for. And for the most part, I think, given our offseason conversation about Behren Morton and some of the things you wanted to see him do, and maybe more literally not do, as far as some of those risks taken and giving the football away, I think he's pretty much checked that box. Don't you? He's avoided some of those big back-breaking mistakes that have plagued not only him, but other Texas Tech quarterbacks in some recent years gone by.
Yeah, I think it's 11 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions in the 3 home games. Obviously, the 2 picks you mentioned were in Pullman under heavy duress. Really, most of the night, I should say. But there was a play that he made versus Arizona State where rolled around a bit, heavily pressured, and he just elected to throw the ball in the stands or deep into his sideline. And I didn't have time to say it with the timing of Brian and John up in the booth talking about it. But had I had time, I would have made the comment, that's a sign of maturity for your quarterback who's growing up and understanding kind of what is being asked of him and learning from, because I think there's been times where in the past, maybe he tries to spin out of trouble even more. And maybe you're looking at a 15-yard loss on a sack just because he wasn't willing to just go, hey man, okay, it ain't happening right now. Get rid of it.
Right. Yeah. Like best case scenario, a sack. Otherwise, injury, fumble, whatever it might have been also.
Yeah. And so, I think that it's like about a 63% completion rate. I just think that at times the fan base has wanted a bit more. Okay. I certainly understand that. Again, you have to understand the context of there's a standard here, but the game has changed. So where does that, or then there's the spoiled context of the fan base and offense and all that. And so you put that in a blender. I don't know what all kind of smoothie you're trying to make there, but
a big milkshake of discontentment.
Yeah, like a Bear-Raid smoothie, Baron-Raid smoothie, whatever. But I think that I think it's been pretty good. I think that he's kept himself out of harm's way for the most part. I think the group in front of him is still very much a work in progress. You know who's one of the most speaking of Behren, because I think it was Joey that talked about this earlier in the week, or maybe it was Zach Kidley, one of the two. Doesn't matter. The conversation of tight ends came up. And how, Jalen Conyers has gotten to the end zone, John Carlos Miller's gotten the end zone 3 weeks in a row and all that stuff, and old Mason Tharp has it. And I would venture up a guess that, because I think Mason and Behren are very tight, but I would offer up this statement.
First, today's episode brought to you by Roy, and it's time to highlight the LOTT Roy Player of the Week. Roy is a new platform that lets fans make contributions directly to their favorite athletes. So download Roy for iOS or Android and enter our referral code LOCKEDON, and you're going to automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash money. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. This week, we've selected the Brahma Bull of the 806, tick, 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 Taj Brooks, who put up 117 yards against Arizona State, passing DeAndre Washington for 5th in career rushing yards all time, and now only 788 away from the legendary Byron Hanspard's all-time record. So for that, we're kicking Mr. Brooks $100 on Roy. And if you were as impressed as we were with his performance on Saturday, you can show him some love too. Just hop on Roy and throw in whatever you feel like. Any amount is adding up fast. So now you have the chance to show your appreciation for Taj and his standout performance this week. Just download Roy for iOS or Android. And again, if you enter in our referral code Locked On, you're going to automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. What are you waiting for? Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And they're not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which make it the best place to find the right hire. Gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. And LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive for you. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates to choose from. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within only 24 hours. That's lightning fast. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier as well. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker, plus more effective. So post your job for free today at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
But I would venture offer up this statement. You can talk about, these are summer conversations, but I'm gonna prove a point, or just try to make a point right now. I'm not so sure you don't have anybody. Look, Josh Kelly is a vital key to what you're doing right now. So is Taj Brooks. There's various guys on defense that, but as far as level of importance or level of making it all go together with what you're trying to do with some of your strengths and your limitations, I'm not so certain that Mason Tharp doesn't belong in a very short conversation of level of importance for what he's giving you. He is an extension of this offensive line. He's by far your best run blocker. I think he's by far been able to help keep Taj moving forward and Behren upright as far as that group up front. And he's just worried about what the team needs, what it wants, only worried about his guys at tight end and Behren and Taj and all. And he's not worried about himself. And if you look up like snap counts after these games, he's by far playing the most snaps of any tight end because he's in there all the time. He's the one constant. And I think that I always love talking about him because he's a stud of a human. But I think that he hadn't caught that many passes, but don't get it twisted on how much he means to Behren and Taj and everybody over there. But
yeah, I know they want to get him one. They want to get him in the end zone. Kitley said that they're trying to, but it just hadn't come together just yet.
Yeah, and it'll happen. It'll happen, and I hope he spikes the air out of the ball when he does, because he's certainly capable. He deserves it. But as far as Behren goes, man, I just think that it's been fun watching him be more mature and maybe try not to be as flashy or as like outside the box with like, okay, I'm going to drop my arm angle or I'm going to just try to sprint like crazy. He's trying to keep it the KISS theory. You know, if it ain't there, don't force it. And I think he's done a good job of that because he doesn't have to now. He's got a lot of juice around him. And so I think he's trying to let those guys do their thing instead of him trying to pull a rabbit out of his hat back there and then putting himself in the harm's way all the while. So I've appreciated that aspect of it, but he has certainly matured and grown and started to become more consistent.
Of course, it was the great Gene Simmons who was the first to say, keep it simple, stupid, which is where that comes from. I really think that there's a lot of reasons as to why you could see a guy try to do maybe a little too much or try to get it all back in one play or do it all himself. I don't want to call it hero ball because I don't feel like it's a selfish thing that we've seen from him previously, but you know, in this season's context, it's like, survive to play another play because you've got Taj Brooks, you got Josh Kelly, you've got these tight ends, you've got Caleb Douglas, you've got guys that can obviously help you out if disaster does not strike on this snap or that snap, where maybe you didn't quite have that luxury. I know you had Taj Brooks a year ago, but maybe didn't quite have that luxury so much over the last couple of seasons. So I think he's done a great job of some of these things that we're describing that probably don't get discussed enough from a fan standpoint. And one thing that we just are always kind of in the dark on, and I wonder about this as well, and I've heard his head coach and the offensive coordinator compliment him on this a couple of times. There's also been some criticism earlier in the season on this, but what he's doing at the line of scrimmage, kind of lost on me and the local yokels up in 102 or 108 or wherever you might be in Jones Stadium. But probably some of the things he's done there as well deserves some credit for that really doesn't make it to the light of day. So would love to see him have a big, flashy, rewarding day statistically. Those are fun also. But just win, baby. Keep cooking that recipe that's involved what you've involved so far, and we'll all be happy at the end of the day.
And I think there's this preconceived notion that certain people think that Behren is only going to be happy if he throws for 400, or Kitley's going to only be happy if you throw for 500, or that Joey's only going to be happy if you run for 300. Okay, whatever. I think people would be stunned and shocked to know they do not care as long as you win. They just don't. And sure, people want to eat and people want to be featured and all the things. But boy, when you win, it's amazing how much better everything is. And, I'm not worried about it. We are winning. What do I care? Guess what? We're all feasting. We're all eating because we are winning. And that's really just keep the main thing, as they say. But yeah, that's nobody cares if you run for 500 or throw for 500 is if you lose. It's all about the result, and that's what you're trying to get to. And what's interesting, Cowan, Kalani Sataki talk about this weekend. We've had our own conversations about Joey and Kitley kind of talking about it and everything like that. But the punt is becoming a bit more in vogue, and I don't know if we're seeing this. Not ready to call it yet, but this change of the analytics, we're kind of backing off a bit. But more teams are willing to go, you know what? It's okay to let your punter run out there and pin somebody or try to. I'm sure that it'll come back around at some point too. Like, how did you not go for that? What are you, a coward? I mean, so, but I'm seeing more and more coaches kind of start to go, man, I got a good running game. I've got a decent defense. Let's play some field position a little bit. Let's punt. And I think Texas Tech operated that way, late in the game on Saturday. They were okay with like trying to run it out, trying to take a bunch of time off the clock, but then it resulted in a punt, and they were okay with that.
I've done some research, and I traced that back to my post-game video I kicked out following the Washington State excursion, where I said punt is not a curse word. And now it's sweeping the nation. Coaches are seeing it. They're like, damn, this guy is brilliant. And yeah, you're seeing it play out now to the tune of some success for those guys that you mentioned. So don't want to toot my own horn, but all right, let's flip to the other side of the line of scrimmage, Chris. I want to take a listen to Texas Tech defensive coordinator Tim DeRuyter talking about an evolution of sorts for his defense so far this season and some of what has gone into that. And it is a layer on top of something similar that Coach McGuire mentioned in his weekly press conference, where he talked about putting his guys defensively in the position to do what they do best, i.e. and or simplifying what they're trying to do. Here is Tim DeRuyter.
I think our guys obviously take a lot of pride, and they knew we didn't play well the first two games, and they went to work. And as coaches, we had to give them some things to help them. You go into a season and you practice in the spring, you practice in the fall, and you think guys can do certain things, situations, and I think with the youth of some of our guys, we probably gave them too much, and created some confusion. You can't play good defense when you're confused, and so we simplified some things, got our guys playing good fundamental football, and we knew last week we had a great challenge in Scattaboo, and our guys, rose to that challenge.
And I know we talked about this during fall camp, how they want to be varied. They want to be versatile. They want to give opposing offenses a lot of different looks. And I'm sure they're still able to achieve that to some degree. But that can also be kind of onerous on the defense itself. And maybe it's something that you can work up toward. But I thought it was really interesting to hear both Coach McGuire and Coach DeRuyter talk this week about trying to simplify some things. And I know it's not that simple to just say, all right, you did that, and now you're playing better defense. But I think you are playing some better defense, even though it hadn't been perfect. So whatever they're doing to get this result, I hope they continue to do that in the coming weeks.
I had somebody point Kenny Dillingham's midweek press conference toward to me this week. He's the Arizona State head coach. Promise we're done talking about him after this reference again. But they said, listen to how similar Kenny Dillingham sounds compared to what Tim and Joey and them have sounded. And it's all about the eraser on the end of that pencil. And Kenny Dillingham said, we had too much time to prepare for Texas Tech, and we put too much in. We should have not done all this. We should have just kept it, put our guys in a position to succeed and let them do the things that we know that they can do. Instead, we try to put all this extra stuff in. And you've heard, Coach Reuter was basically talking about that, and he's talked about that a couple times. It's like we're not ready for all the stuff, all the playbook yet. Let's layer it. Let's work toward that. Mm-hmm. I think last year, and that's the thing, as a coach, you have to be willing to adapt and change, because last year you had guys that had been in the system for 2 to 3 years. They're very old. You're dealing with 23 and 24-year-olds. Now you've got guys that are taking first snaps. They are 18, 19 years old. All the fire and the pyro and the new shiny things are all like a potential distraction. Squirrel. And so that is just adding a layer to, and then I'm asking them to go like to page 7.2 in the playbook on what coverage we want to do against that. So
paragraph 1.c.-7.
Yeah. So I think that kudos to Joey and Tim for saying, we're not going to be stubborn. We're not going to let our ego get in the way. The best example of this is I used to, there's not a guy that I knew personally that knew more football or coached more football at all the levels, including the highest one.
First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Say you're watching a game, you get hit with a hunch, an instinctual calling. Well, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're going to place your bets to keep up with everything going down in real time as you submit that slip. And right now, FanDuel is going to get you started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with only a $5 bet out the gate at FanDuel.com.
There's not a guy that I knew personally that knew more football or coached more football at all the levels, including the highest one, than Carlos Maynard. He coached for Spike. He coached for Mike. He was here before Spike. He worked for the Bears and the Dolphins. I mean, I can't remember all the NFL teams, but he was on that 08 staff. And if you remember, it's a guy that Darcel played for who's on your staff now, but Daniel Charbonnet had a big interception, and then there's all these moments. And I remember saying to Carlos weeks after, and I said, man, you got you just been around so much of this. It's got to be a lot of fun. And, you're teaching them a ton. And he said, Chris, it doesn't matter all the things that I know. It's what can I get them to understand? If I can't get them to understand it, it doesn't matter. And I think he had a really good connection with like Darcel and Charbonnet. It's a pretty good little safety tandem back there. And I just never forgot that. So I think Tim is trying to work that aspect, and like, it doesn't matter all these schemes and coverages and multiple fronts if we can't convey it to these guys and we can't run it correctly. But I think so far so good. And you're going to get another test this weekend for sure.
Well, and you've said before on this show, I mean, I think we talked about it this offseason that, the preference, if things are happening a little too fast or not going well, is not to add more to try to fix it. If you got a problem, don't add more to try to fix it. But I think you've said, to paraphrase, break out the eraser. Maybe try to take some things away to try to fix it. So another way to describe simplifying. And I think that's so true in just about every walk of life, football or otherwise, kind of get back to the basics. And
every coach has got all this. I'm gonna wow my team and people in the stands and people watching. We're gonna do all these things. We're gonna run the the wing tee or the triple option, and we're going to put all these gadgets and tricks, and then we're going to scheme up this, and we're going to do all the stuff. And then you get out there and it's like, okay, fumble, can't get the snap right. The basic
Pre-snap
stuff.
penalty.
Exactly,
Yeah.
the basic stuff. And so I think, the good coaches put their ego over here off to the side and say, let's just find out what we can do, and let's try to do that really, really well. And there's a discipline there in not getting bored with that.
Yes. Yes.
Don't get bored with that. I mean, there's a quote about when Michael Jordan would say that, like, don't get bored with the easy play, or don't get bored making a 12-footer. If that's what you're going to get every time, be the best at it, knock it down every time, and you'll score 33 or 32 points a game, and you'll be the best player that ever lived if you can just consistently knock down a basic jump shot. But people get bored with it. They want to go out at half court and do a hook shot, and all this silliness. No, man, just knock down a 12-footer.
Seems simple, doesn't it? But not all that easy to actually execute, I guess, whenever you get in those shoes. Let's stick with Tim DeRuyter's defense. I want to talk about something that's really getting to be a lot of fun as we're stacking up some weeks here, and I think it's just going to get more and more fun with more of these weeks stacked up, and that is some of the youth on the defense that's really beginning to stand out. Mentioned, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, just kind of in passing, hey, Chapman Lewis is flashing. Chapman Lewis is a lot of fun to watch, and that's fairly early on in the season, and I think he's becoming more and more fun. Brendan Jordan, a guy that you're noticing. Brendan Jordan, a guy that's making some plays, and they're not the only ones, and I hope that group will continue to grow. But those were two guys that Tim DeRuyter also mentioned when talking about some of that youth on his side of the football that's standing out so far.
Chapman Lewis and Brendan Jordan really had a nice game last week. Both those guys made some big-time plays in some critical situations. I was happy to see, Macho step up, win the competition last week. We got to get him more physical. He knows that. He had one particularly bad rep, but for a guy that played a lot of snaps last week in his first meaningful game and being a conference game, I thought he did a lot of really good things.
Coming into the year, Chris, and early on still this season, sticking with particularly those first two guys, because we've just seen Stevenson really for the 1 week where he was in a full-time role. But whether it's Lewis or Jordan, what really gave them an opportunity to get on the field? Now, I know the depth chart was one, like, hey, we need you guys to fill some shoes, but was it athleticism? Was it smarts? Was it instinct? Was it all of the above? Was it some of the fire that they had to endure a year ago that maybe gave them this opportunity? How would you kind of describe what you think they did really well coming into the year early on, and what you're seeing from them now?
I liked the multiple choice. Wasn't it always like when you were taught, like on the SATs or whatever, like if you just don't know, just guess C. Wasn't that
That's
always
right.
Is that right? Okay.
And I've got 2 in the name, so that's what I always went with. Double down on the C.
Yes, I love that. I would answer all the above with kind of what you laid out. I mean, I think that the one knock was, are they physically ready, and they're just young. But as far as speed, athleticism, IQ, these are a couple of Metroplex kids, and Macho, because you're talking about 2 true sophomores and then 1 redshirt freshman, and these guys are starting, they're featured, they're playing well, they're making some mistakes, but nothing that you can't live with, if that makes sense. I mean, it's not. It's just going to happen. It's football. You're going to mix in a whiff on a tackle, or, oh man, I took a wrong step and I get beat in coverage, and I commit a penalty. I mean, such is life.
Sure.
But these are definitely core pieces. That these are the kind of pieces why it's so important to play in bowl games and continue their development. And these kinds of guys are a big reason why there's going to be some expectations, regardless of whatever happens this year. There'll be some expectations for your team next year with how many guys you bring back. Whereas this year, more of a knock, like, ooh, a lot of youth, a lot of inexperience, and all that. But if you bring them all back, I mean, these are grow old with pieces right here. I mean, Chapman Lewis maybe has played better than anybody on your defense. Just call it what it is.
Yeah.
He's got 2 interceptions. He's got 15 tackles. He's been around the ball the whole time.
You've seen him make tackles in the run game.
He's not the biggest kid. He's very physical.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a huge fan, and he's not as young as he still is. He is very experienced now because he's seen college ball for, what are we, 12, 13, 14, 15 games or something like that.
Yeah,
and
a year and a quarter.
Sure. And he still talks to Rabbit all the time. And that's his, who he learned under. Pretty good guy to look up to and try to emulate, certainly. And if he has any kind of career like Rabbit did, and I think he's further ahead of where Rabbit was at their same times in their careers, really by far.
I think so.
Which is a credit to Rabbit for catching him up to that point. I think that's a lot of fun. But I think Macho, it's funny because Macho and I think Chapman are they're same but opposites, because what you'll hear about Macho is that we need to get him to be a bit more physical and tackle better, but he can really run. Whereas Chapman, I don't know if he's going to win like a 100-meter race or anything, but you get around him, you are coming down. Like he's going to be physical. He's sticking his nose in there. So it's pretty interesting on all that. But Macho, the reason that you brought him here from Shreveport is because he can flat out fly. And, as long as he doesn't get caught up with looking in the wrong places and then get burned and this and that. I mean, if it's just, you just got to, hey, follow that dude around. I got it, coach. I can do that. And he stuck his nose in the run game a bunch too, which I appreciated. Mohorn did, Chapman did, all that stuff. You're going to have to do it again Saturday night. And it's much easier to play defense at home, especially at nighttime. There's just something about it, like where it's just on the road, it's a bit tougher. That's just part of it, trying to make those tackles again and again and again with a running back that just keeps, coming right at you and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I'm proud of the youth that we've seen and some of the experience that they're showing.
I'm thinking for Chapman Lewis too, it can't hurt this year to have a guy like CJ Baskerville back there. I mean, how many college snaps has he seen? So leaning on Rabbit, even though he's gone, and Baskerville's still in the mix. And I know that so many are anxious to see kind of McGuire's recruits, or the McGuire administration's recruits, begin to make an impact. And if you're searching far and wide for those guys, we'll look no further than defensively with some of those we're mentioning. I mean, they're making an impact right now, and still early on in the year, man. So that's why I say I feel like you just continue to stack weeks and hopefully have some good luck from a health standpoint, and can't wait to see where they'll be at the end of the year.
And I can't wait till you get Dylan Spencer, Chetta O'Feely when he's ready to roll, Ansel Ndor, Adedire, when you get all these youth and like the big pieces up front, when they start to kind of knock on the door a little bit, and all that, that's when it'll be, because you're getting a lot of the DB part of it right now, but it's the closer to the line of scrimmage guys that I'm equally as excited about. We just haven't seen them crack the code just yet because of injury or because they've got some older guys in front of them.
Yeah. Looking forward to this week's challenge with Cincinnati coming to town with a big load to carry as far as shutting down that offense. You got rushing impact turning into RPO or play action impact to deal with. So should be quite the challenge.
On top of spaghetti.
Chili on top of spaghetti. Double thumbs down, quadruple thumbs down from Locked On Texas Tech as it relates to that.
What's wrong with those people? Yeah.
They say, do not knock it before you try it. I will knock it before I try it, because I will never try it. I refuse. I don't know. Get a few beers in me. I'll probably eat worse. Chris,
Skyline shitty. And is there, how many, here's the other thing about Cincinnati. I don't know how many N's and T's are going on and how you spell it. I did used to watch WKRP.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Yeah, and Lonnie Anderson, respect, miss.
Respect.
I had nothing but respect for Lonnie Anderson. And as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. Google it. But that's
Dr. Johnny Fever, baby.
Those are the Cincinnati things that run through my head.
That's part of the big reason why I was sick enough to want to work in radio. I swear to God, I blame it on that television show. You have committed me to a life of poverty. Thanks a whole lot, WKRP. And I'm going to go. Yeah, we're working with 3 Ns, I believe, in Cincinnati. One of the favorite filming destinations of the first 48 is what they are most known for, if you want to be known for such a thing. All right, Chris, appreciate the time. We still got plenty left in the week to bag on Cincinnati, so we'll get back to doing that maybe on some upcoming episodes. We're going to take a listen to some thoughts from Cincinnati's head coach on tomorrow's episode, dive a little further into what the Bearcats will be bringing to town. So looking forward to that, man. Enjoyed it as always.
Hey, man, appreciate it. Keep hope alive. Keep chili off the top of spaghetti, and we'll talk next time.
And if you'd like to discuss any of these things further, maybe a one-on-one conversation with Chris Level regarding your disdain for chili on top of spaghetti, check out the Matador Mob. Hit the QR code there on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, or check the link out in the show notes. If you're listening via podcast, try on a free 14-day trial. You got early episode releases, exclusive mailbag for Matador Mob members only. A lot of alliteration packed in there. And, of course, the main feature, your one-on-one connection with myself and Chris. We can talk Lonnie Anderson. We can talk Lonnie Anderson. We can talk Lonnie Anderson and anything else that may be on your minds. Thanks to those of you out there who have saddled up for that ride so far. Been fun chopping it up with you, and we'll continue to do so. So hit the QR code there on the screen if you're interested in watching on YouTube, or check out the show notes or our Twitter page at Locked On Tech to get involved with the Matador Mob Insiders. We be mobbing. For Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Big shout out to those everydayers for always being out there mixing it up with us. One of the best ways to help us grow the show is to comment anything below. So go on and dive in and do that. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.